Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to build an HR analysis dashboard that is meant to be used by Director of HR or any HR head. In this collection, we have a total of 6 dashboards, starting with the executive summary, the performance, compensation, employee turnover, engagement and training, and the employee details. The way we are going to move forward in this video is that we are going to discuss the visuals of one dashboard at a time. We are going to discuss what visuals we are building, why are we building, and how we are building. Once we are done with one dashboard, then we will move to the other one and so on. So let's start. First of all, we are going to have a look at the data that we have that we are going to use to build the report. And this data can be downloaded from the location given in the description. Okay, so we can see that this is an Excel file and it has some dimension tables and then the fact table. So the first dimension table is the employee table, which has the basic employee information like the employee ID, first and the last name, the gender, the date of birth, nationality, marital status, educational level, email, date of joining, date of leaving in case if any employee left the company, the reason for leaving, which is very important when HR is doing surveys, and then the voluntary exit, recruitment source, whether this employee was recruited using any kind of online platform, any social media, let's say LinkedIn, or through any other means. The time to hire is basically the number of days that the company took to hire this employee. And then the cost per hire, that is basically the cost that was incurred when the employee was hired. So since this is a dimension table, it's very important that there is a unique key. The unique key is the employee ID. The second dimension table that we have is the department. So here also we can see that the primary key is the department ID key, and then we have the department name. The third one is the job title. So every job title has a unique primary key or a unique identifier, that is the primary key of this table. Department ID, this can be used or it's not needed. It depends on our data model. We have got the job title, the pay grade, and the level, whether it's a specialist role, it's a middle management, and all of those kind of levels. Then we have got the dim location, that's a dimension table about the locations. Dim recruitment source, that is about the recruitment source. And then we have the fact employee details. Now this is an interesting table because this is where all of our juice of the data lies. And this is a fact table which has been organized according to year. So we can see we have got like 6 years of data. And then in every year we have an employee ID. So let's say if I want to select a particular employee, so I can see that the data for this particular employee, it's present for 2019, 2020, up till 2024. So this is the employee ID. Then we have the department ID, which is a foreign key in this table, and it's a primary key in the department dimension table. We've got the job title ID, we've got the location ID, and then we have the hire date, that is the same as the date of joining in the dim employee table. Then we have the termination date, which is the same as the date of leaving. Then we have the performance rating. This is the rating that a certain employee was given in a particular year. Here we can see that some of the rows are blank. So these rows are blank in case if the employee has joined the company in that particular year. So in case if the employee has joined the company in 2024, of course, they are not going to get the rating right away, and they are going to get the rating in the next year. So here we can see that in case if I want to see 2023 and I want to see the hire date 2023, so it does not have any kind of performance rating. However, in case if the hire date is 2022, so they will of course have some kind of performance rating in this particular year. The next one is the base salary. That is the base salary of that employee. That excludes any bonuses or benefits. And then we have the bonus that is linked to the performance rating. So in case if an employee has some kind of performance rating, they will get a bonus. Otherwise, there won't be any kind of bonus. Then we have the pay grade. This is the same that we had in DIM job title table. We have got the work hours per week, the overtime hours during the whole year, the absences, sick leaves remaining, vacations, vacation leaves remaining, then we have late attendance, engagement score, satisfaction score, reason for leaving, voluntary exit, training hours in that year, some of the mandatory trainings that were assigned to an employee and how many trainings did the employee complete. Recruitment source, it's the same that we saw in the DIM recruitment source table. Then we have the time to hire and then the cost per hire. That's the same as we saw in the DIM employee table. So here we can see that there are some redundant columns that we may not be needing from the fact table, but in fact we would be needing that from the dimension tables. Let's quickly discuss the engagement score and the satisfaction score because this is important from the HR perspective. So engagement score, that measures how emotionally connected and committed employees are to their work and the company. Whereas the satisfaction score, that reflects how happy or content employees are with their job, including aspects like work environment, salary, work-life balance. So that basically is reflected in the surveys that are done by HR. Okay, so let's start with Power BI. First, we'll import the data. We'll have a look at the data, whether we have to make any kind of changes in the data, and then we'll start building the dashboard. So first and foremost, we are going to go to the options and we are going to disable some things like importing the relationships, auto-detecting the new relationships. Daytime, we'll create our own calendar table and we'll also disable the allow data previews. Now the next step is we are going to get the data since it's an Excel workbook. So I'm going to get the data from here. Now we have got all of these tables. So I'm going to select all of the tables and load. Let's click here. So we have imported the data. Now we have got the DIM department table where we can see that the DIM department ID, it's an integer. And then we've got the department name. So I think this is perfectly fine. We've got the DIM employee ID. So everything seems to be fine. The last step, which might be a good one, is just to arrange it in the ascending order. The next one is the job title. Here we can see we can convert that to a whole number. Department ID, let's convert that to a whole number. Job title is fine. Pay grade, let's convert that to a whole number. And the level. So all of this is also fine. Let's go to the location. This one is perfectly fine. No need to do anything. DIM recruitment source. Whole number, this one is also fine. Now this is something that we need to work on and some changes. So let's do it sort ascending. Reason for leaving. Okay, so let's replace these values just for the sake of it. Let's replace it with n/a and we do the same for voluntary exit. Replace values /a. And that's it. And then we change the cost per hire to a fixed decimal number. So I think that's pretty much it. And now let's move to the dashboard. Okay, so before we start working on our dataset, I'm going to set the color theme first, and then we will start working on the data. So we go to View, Themes, Customize Current Theme, and then you can name anything. Let's call it HR, or let's say blue and purple. I'm going to paste the colors from my source. I have it in a different file. So this one is this one, do it F55D0. And then this is the second one. What I have learned over the period of time is you should be focusing on 3 or a maximum of 4 colors, not more than that. And then you should be playing with the shades of those colors or with the shades of gray. That's the best thing that you can do. and they should be having some kind of theory in the colors as well, that they shouldn't be very bright or very much like colorful. So they should be around some kind of color palette. So these are the 4 colors that, or 4 or 5 colors. I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes these colors or sometimes these colors. I'm going to leave these 2. And then I'm going to use gray maybe sometimes. Then for the advanced, we're not going to touch advanced text. In case if you like a certain text, I'm going to set everything to Arial. And in general, I'm going to keep it less to 8. Title, Arial 9. Cards and KPIs, Arial 45. Tab headers, 8, and Arial. The next one is the visuals. I don't think I'm going to do anything except the next one is the visuals. We are going to set some of the colors here. So again, I'm going to use the colors from the theme. This one, and then leave it as black, or let's put it white. Background color, it's set to white. Page filter pane, I think that's it. So title font size should be 9 and 9. That's it. Okay, so now we are good here. Let's have a look at the table. Let's have a quick look at the tables that we have here. So we have got the dim department ID, which is seen in the table view. We have got the dim employee, and then we have got dim job title, dim location, dim recruitment source, and fact employee details. So we need a lot of different measures, a lot of different calculated columns that we will create in the table view, and we'll do it as we come across the need to build it. So we will do it right at that time. So right now we are not doing anything with the tables, but one thing that we really need to create is the calendar table, and that is one table that I always create in the in this table view. So we'll click on new table, and then I'm going to paste the code and I'm going to explain it. So here what we are doing is that we are calling the table as calendar, and we are adding the columns with a minimum value and the maximum value. As we know that whenever we are building a calendar table, so we have to define the minimum date from where the calendar should start and the maximum date where the calendar should end. If you know that the dates are going to be fixed, you can always type a date which is fixed. But if you think that the dates are going to be dynamic, they are going to change with the data, then you can type something like this, where it takes the reference from the data. So here what we are doing is that we are taking the minimum date of joining. So we are starting from the date of joining. We take the minimum value of that date, and from there we start the table. Then the maximum date, how it's being calculated here, and it totally depends on your data set, but what we are doing here is that we are taking the year column, because we already have a year column. We take the maximum value of that column, we combine it with the month, because the second argument is the month and the third argument is the day. So in the end, what we are doing is that we are saying 31st of December 2024, which is the maximum value of the year in our data set. Then we have to define the column. So always the column name, that comes first, and then you are typing the value of that. So the column name is year, and the value is the year of that date. Which date? The date that you are going to create in this range. Then you have the month number. This is the name of the column, and you say that take that date and extract the 2 digits of the month. So it's going to be 06 or 10, 11 or 12, something like that. So you are creating the month number. Then you have the month name. In case if you put 3 M's, then that's like you are creating the month name in the short form, like JAN, Jan, Feb, March, and so on. Then you have the quarter. So you are calculating like Q1, Q2, and so on. Weekdays, weekday name, that is MONTUE, etc., week of the year, year of the month. Once you have written all of this, what we are going to get is something like this. So here we can see that the first date, that is the smallest date in our dataset, that is 9th of July 1989, and from there onwards it calculates all of those till the last one, which was 31st of, in fact it's not giving me in the sorted form, so I just need to click here, sort ascending, and then we should be having it. So here we have 31st of December 2024 and all of the different values. So this is really important that we need to have as a calendar table. One more thing that I would want to do here is the fact employee details. I would want to create a date column here, and what I'm going to call it is a report date, so that I can link my calendar table with the fact table. So right click, new column, and what I'm going to say is report date equal to date, and then year of fact employee details 12/31. There you go. And then you have the report date. You can set it to the format of a short date, something like this. This is what I prefer. And yeah, now let's move on to the model view. So we have got these dimension tables and the fact table and dimension table, and then the calendar table. We'll quickly do the relationships between them. So employee ID with employee ID, it's one-to-many, that works. Then we have the department ID with the department ID, one-to-many, that works. Then we have the job title ID with job title ID, one-to-many, that works. Prefer going from the dimension table to recruitment source, one-to-many, one-to-many, yeah, that's perfect. And then we have the location ID with the location ID, great. For the calendar, we have got 3 different types of dates. Remember, we had the hire date, we had the termination or the leaving date, and then we created a third date, which is called the report date. So because our report is basically focused on the report date, so we are going to link the date of the calendar table with the report date as the active relationship, one-to-many, right? Make this relationship active, that's perfect. We are going to link another one just in case we need from the date to the hire date. So I'm going to click here, this one, and this time it's not selected, that's perfect, and you will see a dotted line. That means that the relationship is inactive. The third one is the termination date. So from the date to the termination date, that is also perfectly fine. Our relationship part is done now, and now we are good to create the dashboard. Our first dashboard is the executive summary, which is a snapshot of the critical workforce metrics that the HR head can use in order to quickly assess the organization's performance and the areas that need the attention, supporting faster and informed leadership actions. It covers areas like the demographics, retention rate, satisfaction score, distribution by department, salary information, performance ratings, attendance information, and some kind of compliance in the mandatory trainings. On the left hand side, we've got the year filter, which basically allows us to see the overall performance in a specific year. And then we have the location. So in our data set, as we see that we have got certain locations. So in case if we want to see the global performance, or we want to see a particular location, that can be selected from this filter. Okay, now we have to start creating the executive summary dashboard. And the approach that we'll take, first of all, we will divide this canvas into different components like these boxes, and then we will start building the visuals. Let's start by placing the boxes. So we'll go to Insert, Shapes, Rounded Rectangle. There we are. Quickly format this. No background. No background. No fill. The border, it should be somewhere like this. And the rounded corners. But first, let's try to, the first one should be 410, 262, and horizontal, we'll place it 178 by 77. So this should be the position. Then we are going to remove the rounded corners maybe to 5. Yeah, so this is the first shape. Now we are going to copy it, paste it again and again. So this one, this is going to be 147 by 395, and then the horizontal position should be 461 by 78. Then do a copy, paste it here, and this should be 147 by 395, and then it should be 872 by 78. This is the third one. Then we copy it and paste it. It's like this. And its height should be 214 by 678. And then it should be 178 by 498. So this is the one. And then we copy it one more time and we created something like this. Next, we are going to put the visuals. So we are going to put the filters first. First filter is going to be the year filter, and it has to look like a drop down. So we go to slicer settings, we go to drop down. We just want to select one year at a time. So we are going to select one. So now we have all of these like this. And then the second thing I need to do is to resize it. So I will resize it like it should be 53, and then it should be 152, and it should be 7, and 130 is something that I would love to have. So then we are going to copy the filter, we paste it here, align it, and then this one has to be the location. So we will bring in the location. Now we have got this location, but we want to keep it as a multi-select. So we will simply remove this. We can also have select all. So we have this kind of option. One thing I want to point out here is that we are giving the flexibility to the calendar table to have all of the values since the date of joining. But since our report is more focused on the last 5 years, so we are going to put filters for all the pages. So we bring here and we say that it has to be basic filtering, where we can have something from 2020 onwards. Like this. We can apply. Now we see that we have only these ones. All of the pages, they are going to be filtered only for these years. When we see here, we have only 5 years. Now, the next step is to place a text box that is for the title. So let's expand it and start typing executive summary. The size, font size I would like to have is this much, and let's keep it bold. And also we are going to set the dimensions for this one. So this could be 42 by 581. That should be fair enough. And 184 by 16. So this is perfect. Now we have to start building the visual. So we have the first visual, which is basically total employees, a text box, and a bar chart. We are going to put a normal KPI card, and in that we need the count of the employees. So we start by creating a measure, but I always try to put all of the measures in a table. The way to do that is that we go to enter data and we call it measures table, and let's say 1. Okay, so after a couple of seconds, you have the measures table right there. We right click on the measure table, we click on new measure, and now we have to calculate the current headcount. Remember, we have to remove any employees that have been terminated. So we will say current head count equal to, and we are going to say calculate count employee ID from the fact table, and we are going to say is blank any termination date, and that's it. So if you remember that the termination date column in our fact table, so it's populated with the dates in case the employee has left the company, but in case the employee has not left the company, it's always blank. So we have the current headcount. It's created here. Now what we have to do is we right click on column 1 and we delete it from model. What happens is that it pushes this table up to the top. We can see here it's measure table, and now it's current headcount. Another thing that I like to do is to organize all of my measures according to some methodology. It could be according to the dashboard. It could be according to some kind of calculation category. So here in this report, we are going to put all of the measures according to the dashboard. So I go to properties, I go to the display folder. What I'm going to write here is 01 executive summary. Okay, enter. And you see now there's a folder under this measures table where current headcount is placed. Okay, now we take the KPI card and we put the current headcount there. It's 19 in Beijing, but we just take all of these and we come to 2024 and we place it something like this. And then we have to bring in a text box, and we are going to write total employees. That is something that we will place below this one. We are going to rearrange these in a moment, and then we are going to place the bar chart. So we put the clustered bar chart, we bring in the current headcount, and then what we have to do is to categorize it by the gender. So we bring in the gender as the axis. So that looks fine. And what I'm going to do is to go to the bars and put something for the males. For the males, I'm going to keep the color like this. And for the females, we can choose some feminine color, which is basically this one. And it can be done like this. Another thing, because it's part of the main KPI, so we are going to remove everything. So we remove the x-axis and the y-axis, both of these. And we are going to remove the title as well. But what we do is we put on the data labels. But what we do is that we put on the data labels. So this one is fine. And now we have to place it. Okay, so we select this one. Firstly, we are going to remove the category label. The callout value, we can make it 27 and bold. And then we have the sizing. So let's put something like 66 by 115. The position should be 224 by 95. And then this one, so we are going to put the height as 32 by 149. Horizontal, it should be 243 by 148. And we can increase the size as much as possible. I think 12 looks better if we put it as bold. Yes, it does. And then this one, we have to do this height. So this should be 85 by 222, 192 by 148. Okay, so one last thing that we should be doing, because we are working on this background, which is basically the white background. So we have to make sure that all of the background for these visuals is white. Not in fact white, but it's transparent, right? And another thing I like to have is with the view, I like to have selection, so I can select any of the text boxes that I want. Okay, so this one is done. I think for this text box, we can simply have 10, I think 11 should be fine. Yes, so the first one is done. Then we move on to the retention rate, which is to be placed here, and then the satisfaction score. So since both of the visuals are the same, we'll make one and then we'll copy the other one. Now we have to calculate the retention rate, and for that we need to understand which employees are the new employees and which are the old ones in the year 2024. So for that, we'll go to the data model, in fact the table view. To understand whether an employee is an old one or a new one for a specific year, we'll go to this table, which is fact employee details, and then we'll create a calculated column. The column should be something like, we'll call it new hire, and we say that if the year of hire date, which is in fact employee details, if the year of this date is greater than or equal to the reporting year, which is basically this one, then it's a yes, it's a new hire, right? Otherwise, it's an old hire. So we put something like this. So here what we are doing is that we take the hire date, which is basically this one, June 19, 2024. We take the year from this date, and then we compare it with the year, which is the reporting year, the year that we are also using the filter of our report, and we see whether if that is hire date year is greater than this year. If it is, then it's a yes, which means it's a new hire. Otherwise, it's not a new hire. We go back, and now we have to create a measure of the retention rate. So we click on the new measure and we type in retention rate. We will first calculate a variable and we'll call it headcount old hires. And we say calculate count of employee ID from the fact table, employee ID. And then we say if it's a new hire, so it should be equal to no, right? So now I'm calculating the number of old hires. Then I create another variable and I call it terminations. And then I'm going to say calculate count of employee ID from the fact tables where the termination date is not blank. Right? And then we are going to say var. So we are going to call it retentions. That is basically headcount of all hires minus the terminations. Then we say return divide the retentions. That means the old hires who are still in the company with the head count of old hires 0, and then we close it. We have the retention rate, we categorize this as a percentage. Let's keep it to 1 decimal. And then we bring in this donut chart. We have retention rate, which is 97.2% for this year. Let's put it like 0. That should be fine, 97%. But we need to have some kind of dial which tells us that, you know, out of 197 people, they have remained. So we need to create some kind of a filler. So what we are going to do here is we will create another measure, and I will call it visual retention rate donut filler, which means that this is a visual filler in the retention rate donut filler, and it's just 1 minus retention rate. Okay, so let's put it here, and then we bring this one as well. So here we are. What we need to do is to put this thing as a very light gray, and I always like to keep the spacing to 80 or 85, something around this one. And what we have to do here, and this should be just a filler, so let's call it filler only. Remove the legend, the background, so remove the title, remove the background, remove the legend as well, and then we have to resize it and relocate it. So that should be 126 by 126. Horizontal should be 483 by 100. And then we are going to remove any kind of data labels. I also like to remove any kind of padding, so that should be more like this one. This is perfect. And then we have to place one more card where we will show retention rate %, and we are going to bring in category label to 0. This has to be this. Now we have to size it, so we quickly size it to 52, 100, 496, and 137, and we send it to the back. So we send it to the back. Okay, but I think what I would want to do is to reduce it to 22. Yeah, that's perfect. Now we have to insert another text box, and we are going to write retention rate, set it to 10, bold, and I'm going to place it 25, 229, 483, and 83. There you go. Okay, next we have to create the line visual. So we click on the line visual. On the x-axis we have to place the year, and on the y-axis we have to place the retention rate. So now it's being filtered. We click on the filter. We are just going to remove this kind of filtering. So here we see it's something like this. Disable this. And what we have to do is to remove any kind of grid lines. So we go to, first we are going to remove the title. We are going to remove any kind of background. We do the same with the grid lines, off, and we are not even going to show the year, the title of the year. To show the year is fine. And we are not going to show anything on the y-axis as well. So we remove the values from the y-axis. From x-axis we remove the title, but we keep the values. Now it's a very clean chart. Also what we want to do is to set the color to a lighter one, which is this one. And the last thing for this appearance, we need to keep the labels. So this looks quite nice. Now we have to position it. For positioning, we go to this place, and then we are going to say 113.205. You can basically simply drag it to the desired place, but since I have the exact location, so I'm just trying to be as accurate as possible. So we have done this one. Now we need to have a similar thing for the satisfaction score. So what we are going to do is to simply copy all of these. Rather, we should group them like this. And let's remove this, and we click here and we do copy paste. We take all of this group, we align it like this. Now this is perfect. Right, satisfaction score. Remove this one, and again we are going to create an average satisfaction score. So we click on new measure and we type average satisfaction score. So we are going to use the average function, and then we have the satisfaction score in the fact table. So it's very simple. What we have to do is to bring it in this visual, new measure underscore visual satisfaction score donut filler. And because the maximum is 100, so we say this much, an average satisfaction score, right? Bring in the average satisfaction score, and then we are going to bring in the satisfaction score donut. We are going to put the slices. So here we can see that the satisfaction score is 95.9. Let's put it to a whole number. So we select this one and we choose it as a whole number. So it's 96. That is fine. And what we are going to do here is we are changing this to this one. And we are going to look at the card, and we are going to change it from retention rate to the average satisfaction score. There we are. It's 96. And what else we have to do is to make sure that this card and this, they are aligned. So we go and we align the middle. Okay, so this is done. What we have to do is to name this score as satisfaction score, and this one as retention rate. Yeah. So now we have to change this one. We remove the retention rate, we bring in average satisfaction score. Again, we have to unlink it from this filter. There you go. And the next thing that you need to do is to change the color. So you go to lines, and then you are going to change this color. Okay, so two of the visuals are complete here. The next visual that we have to create is the distribution by department group, the distribution of the employees. And for that, we do not have the department group present in our dataset by default when we have to create it. So what we will do is we'll go to table view, and we go to the employee job titles, not the job titles, but the dim department. And here we are going to create two columns. The column name here you can see is the department name, and sometimes the department name is too long to be put into a visual. So what we will create is that we will create a short name for the department that we will use in our visuals, and then we'll also create a department group. So what we are going to do is to right click, new column, and then I'm just going to paste the code and I will explain it. So here what we are doing is that we are creating a new column called department name short. We are using the switch function. What the switch function does is that it finds one value. The value of department name is sales. So then it's going to put in sales as the result. If it's information technology IT, it's going to put just a very short name IT. So we are going to create this one by one for every department. And in the end, we are going to write other, which is basically any option that is other than these words. So once we click on this, we have a department name short. Again, we are going to create another column that is called department group, and that is the column that we are going to use in our main visual. So new column, and then we are going to put this code. You can type it. I simply pasted it from my source. So basically what we are doing here is that we are grouping the departments into department groups. Let's say sales, finance, HR, and IT, all of them are incorporated. Then we have product development and manufacturing, and then we have ops and supply chain. So all of these are done. Once we have written this, then we click enter. So now we have a department group here. Now we go back to the report view and we start building the visual. What we are going to do here is that we are going to bring in the current headcount, and we are going to use it as the clustered bar chart. The y-axis has to be the department group. So here we have it. But now we want to create something that the label is at the top of the bar so that we can fit it in such a small space. For that, we are going to use the workaround. But before that, let's do the basic cleanup. Okay, so now what we are going to do is that we are going to create a measure which is called visual labels placeholder, and we are going to bring it in this visual. So now we can already see the zeros that are appearing. We put it like this. So now we have it at the top, and then we go to data labels. We don't want to show the value of 0. So what we do is we select this and we select it like that. The next thing that we have to do is to create another measure, and that measure is going to be the label itself. So what we do, we right click, new measure, and this time we say visual employee headcount bar chart labels. And what I am going to do is firstly use the department group, selected value, dim department group. Then what I do is that I go return and underscore department group. Okay. Now, once we have done this, we have to bring it under the detail of visual labels placeholder. So we go here and we put in like this. It's still not appearing. I think what I need to do is to turn it on. Okay. So corporate, so department group is corporate and the current headcount is 172. And then we have it like this. What we have to do, or what we can do, basically, we can replace all of this with a space bar. And also we can say just headcount. So this is fine. Another thing that we want to do is to create the label or the title for this, and we want to remove the legend. So we remove the legend. Now this is more space for the visual, and what we have to do, we can simply copy this one. Okay, so distribution by department group. Now what we want to do is to enable the user to have a tooltip where they can see the distribution within the department group. Okay, so what we have to do is to create a tooltip page. For creating the tooltip page, what we will do is that we will copy this visual. We create a new page and we go to the canvas background, canvas settings, and we create it like a tooltip. So this is the area where we can place this visual, and then we are going to remove this, color the bars back to our standard color, and we are going to bring in department name. And this time the department name is to be the short one that we created. We enable the y-axis values. Okay, we need to turn on the value. Okay, and then we can also put a heading here. So we can just put something like head count. We can make it 14. We place it like this, and we can also make it centered. This looks better. And we can also put a card here, which will give us the total head count. So something like this. This looks better. Then we go here. We select this one. we go to the general options, tooltips, and this time it's going to be a report page, and we say page 2. Now when we bring our cursor here, we can see the headcount of 172 is divided into the departments. Here also we can see the departments, but we see that the customer service is not visible. So what we can do is we can try to make the y-axis take more space. Okay, now I think all of them, they are great. In case if you want to give the title so that the user knows that this is a department name, so we can basically switch the title on and we can call it department. Okay, the next visual that we have to create is the average salary by department. So to start, we can make use of some of the standard. So this could be average salary by department. Okay, and then we are going to create a clustered bar chart. Now we need to create the average salary by department, so we need the measure of average salary. So we click on new measure and then we say average. So here we are keeping the basic or the base salary as our measure. You can put total compensation as well if you want. So we are saying calculate average of the base salary is blank, termination date. So now calculate the average of the base salary of the existing employees. That means those 415 employees. Okay, so we create this and we bring this measure here. So here we can see that we have some kind of value. We will keep it as $1 and then we are going to round it to 0. So now it looks better. The next thing that we have to do is to remove the background and the title as usual. And we are going to remove the x-axis totally, yes, and the y-axis we are going to bring something here which should be the department name short. Okay, so now it looks a bit better, but still it's not fitting in our space. So what we can try to do is to adjust the size and the padding. So let's remove all of the padding from here. This gives us a bit of flexibility. And then what we can try to do is we can turn off the title of the y-axis. That's better. And then let's try to resize it. Now we are able to fix all of the 10 departments in one visual, which was not possible here, or it was very difficult. So that's why we kept it as a department group. Again, you can keep it as a department group if you want. And then you can rename this and average base salary. So this is perfectly fine. Then we go on y-axis done, x-axis done, grid lines removed, bars, we need to set the colors. So all of those should be blue. Okay. And then the next thing is you want to show the data labels. It's in thousands. That is the perfect thing. Let's fix it to thousands, no decimal places that we want. And then we can also try to bring them within the bars. Position. So position should be inside end. This is fine. And the next thing that we want to do is to also have an average line, an average salary of the whole organization for 2024. So what we are going to do is to create a constant line here. For that, what we will do, constant line, add line, we can call it average or overall average. Yeah, and then color should be something which differentiates it like that. The value should be based on the average base salary. So here we can see it. I would keep the transparency 0. And then what I would want to do is to have a label as well. It should be placed on the right, and the vertical position should be something like that. The unit should be the same as we had before. So 57K. Then we want to set the colors for the bars. Any bars that are below the average, they should have a different color. For that, we need to create a variance from this average base salary. Okay. So what we are going to do, first we have to create the overall average, which is this, but we have to do it using the formula. We click on new measure, and then we say average base salary overall. We calculate. First, we are saying that we want the average base salary, but not like that, but we are going to say average and take the average of the base salary and anything that is blank for the termination date. So that means the current employees, but also remove the filters from the table, which is fact employee details, and values of the calendar year. This one, and then it's closed. Okay, so here we have the average base salary overall. Now we are going to create the variance between average base salary and the average base salary overall. We are going to create a new measure, and that is average base salary variance, and that is average base salary minus average base salary overall. Click on this, and this is the measure that we are going to use for our formula. So we say this rules average base salary variance. If this is greater than minimum number and less than 0, then set the color to this one. Otherwise, if it's greater than or equal to 0 and less than maximum, then set the color to this. And there we are, it's done. The next visual that we have to build is the average performance rating by department. So we will use slightly different technique, slightly fancy technique to build that visual. So let's start with the basic table visual. So we are going to bring in a table, and we are going to use the department name short, and we are going to use the average performance rating. Now we don't have the average performance rating, which we are going to calculate. We are going to create a new measure, average performance rating equal to average of performance rating. Yeah. So we have this one, and we are going to place this here. So we've got this average performance rating. We arrange the average performance rating by descending order, and let's position it. So this one has been placed, and let's increase the row padding by 1 so it comes down. Yep. And we have to turn off the totals. It's looking good, and the value should be like this, no borders at all, or maybe let's keep the white borders. Now what we have to do is that we'll create circles. We're going to use the SVGs. So we'll create a new measure, and here we are going to say that this is a visual for performance rating circles. I'm not going to go into the details of the SVG, but I will just write some things here, and I will copy some of the code. So let's say we say variable So we have a starting point and the ending point of the SVG. This is something that I'm copying it from the other source. So this is the starting of the SVG, and then this is the view box. So what we are doing here is that we are taking 100 and 1000 because we have 10 circles. So against the 100, we are taking 1000. So this is basically the width and this is the height. And then what we are going to do is use another var, and this is going to be the end or the close of the SVG. Then what we are going to do is to bring in the circle shapes. So I am going to copy the SVG code for var circle 1. This is basically the creation of the circle. And then I'm going to create another variable, which is that I am going to concatenate the circles, and I'm going to generate the series starting from 0, ending at 900 with a difference of 100. So I'll have 10 circles, and in that I'm going to have the value, which is basically the value of 1 for every circle. And then I'm going to copy the definitions. So here I'm copying some of the definitions. As you can see here that the clip width is average performance rating multiplied by 100. Okay, so because this is average performance rating, if that is 10, then it should be when 10 multiplied by 100, that is equal to 1000, which is basically the maximum width here. And then we have the rectangle, which has a height of 100 and with x equal to 0, y equal to 0. So that is basically like we have got 10 boxes, each with a height of 100. So then we have got 1000. So this 100 corresponds to this 100. Okay, and then what we are going to do is bring in the colored stars. So let's bring it like that. So here what we are doing is that we are creating some gray circles, which will be the empty circles that I will show you. And then we have got the filled circles. So all of those filled circles will be filled with this color code. The gray circles will be filled as white, and the returning value that we will have is something like this. So when we select this and bring this one as well. Okay, so now there's a problem that we are seeing this huge code. So what we need to do is that we need to set this data category as image URL. And now we have these circles. But here we see that the circles are very small, and the row width it's very large. So what we are going to do is to come to the image size, let's say 20, and the width should be 150. There you go. We are still not there yet. So what we have to do is, I think, if we reduce the padding, if we reduce it to 0. Okay, there we are. So now what we can do is simply remove these like this with a space bar. Okay, so this works. And then we can simply drag it just a bit here, and we can take this one, paste it, bring it here. We can align both of these, this one and this one, align to the top, and we can say average performance rating by part. The next one that we have to create is the time of distribution. We'll start with the heading. So let's bring in this heading, copy, paste, bring it here, align them quickly like this, is better. And then we say time of distribution. This tells us the amount of the leaves that have been taken by employees and the amount of the leaves that are remaining. And what we are doing here is we are going to create a donut chart, but before that we have to create the total vacations that remain and the total vacations that have been taken. We will say total vacations remaining equal to sum of vacations leave remain. Yeah. And then we are going to create total vacations taken, that is sum of vacations leave. Okay, so then we create a donut chart and we are going to bring in the remaining and the taken ones. We are going to remove everything except the legend, but the legend should be moved to the left, center left. And what we are going to say, vacations taken, so only taken, because we are already talking about vacations, so we can keep things as minimum as possible. There you go. So this one is also completed. The next visual that we are going to build is about the average absences and the sick leaves, because that is also related to the attendance. So it's going to come in the same box. So what we are going to do is to create two measures. Average absenteeism, that is going to be the average of the absences. And then we are going to create a new measure, that is average sick leaves, and that is going to be average of sick leaves taken. Then we are going to build a line chart, a similar chart that we have here. So what we can do is basically we can copy it and paste, bring it here. Then again, we are going to edit the interactions because this is more like a trend. And then we are going to remove this. We put in average absenteeism and average sick leaves. And then what we have to do is to bring in the title. Average absences and sick leaves. Yep, that's great. And then the next one that we have to create is the mandatory training completion by year, because we want to see how many employees are completing the mandatory trainings that were assigned to them. So that is more like a compliance factor. Okay, so what we are going to do here is to bring in the 100% stacked column chart. We can place it somewhere here, bring in the year from the calendar table. Here we have to put the mandatory training completion rate by year. So we need the total number of mandatory trainings completed and the mandatory trainings remaining, and then we are going to calculate the completion rate. So what we are going to do here is to create three measures. Total mandatory trainings completed, and that is going to be the sum of mandatory trainings completed. The next measure is going to be total mandatory trainings assigned, and that is going to be the sum of mandatory trainings assigned. Then we are going to divide one measure from the other. So we are going to say mandatory trainings completion rate equal to divide the mandatory trainings completed by the mandatory trainings assigned. Put 0 as a safe side and then here we are. And then this is going to be a percentage, and we want to keep the value to 1 decimal place. Now, what we are going to do here is when we put it like this, so it looks like this is 92.9%, but we are going to edit the interactions with this. So now we have the year, and also we are going to bring in, first we have to remove the title from the y-axis. We'll keep the values, and we will bring in the data labels. That should be 100, because we have got 100% full bar of the training completion. So we need to have some kind of filler, again, just like these visuals. So what we are going to do is that we are going to create a visual filler. So again, we click here just to keep the things separate. Visual, mandatory training completion filler, and this is going to be 1 minus, because it's a rate, so 100% is 1, and mandatory completion rate. Okay, and then what we are going to do is to bring in that filler right here. So there we have it, but now we are going to make some changes. Columns for this one, we are going to make it like that, and we are also going to turn off the labels for this one. Okay, for the other one, what we are going to do is we can change the color to our standard color, which is this one, and then we can also remove the legend. There you go. Mandatory training completion rate by year. Or let's remove the word rate. Yeah, that's fine. Let's put it slightly to the left. It's done. Now the only thing that is remaining is the logo and the buttons that we will create for the pages. But before that, let's do a small thing. So let's call this executive summary, because now we are going to prepare for the other pages. And before we create the buttons, I'm going to create all of those pages. Another thing that we can do with this tooltip is, firstly, we are going to add keyword of tooltip that allows us to understand that this is a tooltip related report page. And then what we are going to say here is headcount by department. The last thing that you have to do, we should have done it earlier, is to hide the whole tooltip page. So now whenever I'm looking at this in my main menu, I will never be able to see this tooltip page as a user, but as a developer, of course, I can see that. After completing all of these visuals, now we have to create the buttons on the left hand side. That will be the navigation buttons to the pages. And before we start creating those pages, let's do a bit of a cleanup here, that we need to arrange these measures in the form of folders. So let's start with the visuals. We go here and we select this one, and let's call it 00 visuals. So what we will do here is that we will create a folder of visuals, any measures that are related to the appearance of the visuals, that will be in 00 visuals, and then we will create the folders based on the pages that we are going to create later on. So let's start with performance. I select this and I'm going to say 02 performance, satisfaction score. Then we have average base salary. So let's put it as 3. Compensation would be the page that we would want to create. Average base salary variance in there. Training completion rate, that should be 6. Engagement and training. Then we have retention rate, that should be in employee turnover. So that will be the 4th one. Mandatory training assigned, completed, they go in engagement and training. And visual performance rating, this goes as a visual. So let's do it in the visuals. So we'll create type underscore and then we put it like this. Okay, so now all of these are in the folders. Now what we have to do, and we should have created this earlier, but let's start creating the pages. So this one should be performance. You know what, we don't have to create the attendance, so let's select all of these and put them in the overview. So we've got this attendance, and let's put all of them in the executive summary. And this one should be now number 5, right? So we just put it like number 5. The last page that we have to create is the employee details. So I'm going to write employee details, and this comes here. So all of the 6 main pages have been completed. For the buttons, we are going to make use of the blank buttons and some SVGs. So what we are going to do is to insert a button, a blank one, and format button. What we are going to do here is to bring it somewhere around here and create a width of maybe 165, something around that. Yeah, that looks good. And the horizontal position can be, let's put it to 0. Then we remove the border. And no icon as well. And the fill here. Now here what we are going to do is to bring in the images. Now we will go for the icon that has been selected because we are in the executive summary page. So we will look for summary selected. This is the SVG that I created in advance. We put it to fit and the transparency should be 0. It's like this. And then we are going to type the text. So we will go here and we will say executive summary. And what we can do here is we can do some padding. So it should be like this. Yeah. There is no action that will be performed from here. It will not take us anywhere, or even if you want to keep it like this, page navigation, destination, none. Okay. Then the next one, and we will turn off the tooltip. Then the next one will be, we will simply copy it, paste it, and then we go to button, style, let's go to default, fill, and the next one is going to be performance, as you can see here. So what we are going to do is to deselect this, and we have to select the performance. Performance will be normal, this one, and this is going to be fit, transparency 0. And the action that it takes is that it does the page navigation. The destination is performance. This is for the normal state. But when I want to hover my mouse pointer over the button, so I'm going to take it for in performance hover. And this is something like this. You can see it's purple now. So this one should be the page navigation as well. Similarly, we are going to do the action for the rest of the buttons. Here also we need to put performance. Okay, that's it. On hover as well as on default performance. Yeah. So now this looks good. It shouldn't be centered. It should be like this. And then if we try to bring it like this. Okay, so 38 should be fine. Then we should also do the same with this one. 38. Okay, now these 2 buttons are created. When we click on this button, control click, we go to the performance. So that's fine. After we have completed all of the 6 buttons, as you can see here, that And the only last thing that we have to do is to make sure that all of them, they are aligned properly and they are also distributed properly. So distributed vertically and aligned to the left. So that is all. I think we have created the first dashboard, and then we are going to create the next 5 dashboards in the next part.